This is something that my partner and I talked about that was a big aha moment for him. It kind of changed him. Was there was a guy who I had been on a few dates with who turned out to be a flat earther.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's a revelation. And I was just sitting there at this really fancy taco place being like, what do I do? Did he just say that? And so I asked a few questions to figure out if it was true. And it seemed like that's where things were going. And he was like, and then you kicked him to the curb, right? My partner. And I was like, no, I definitely fucked him that night.
Oh.
And he was like, what? You would fuck somebody like that? And I'm like, yeah, how many
flat earthers have you fucked?
Unintelligent or low quality humans have you fucked because they were attractive?
Seriously?
Right? And as a man, no one is like, oh, you should have had your principles. Right?
Where did your value system go?
What happened to you? How could you do that? How could you open your legs for that flat earther? I mean, he definitely ruled himself out of any future dates.
That's so funny, though, that you fucked a flat earther. I would have been interested in seeing what he would say in bed.
I know, right?
Oh, look, the horizon. Does it look curved now?
Oh.
For your pleasure or mine?
I guess, yeah, for a flat earther, he did like curves. I can say that much. Welcome to the Joosi Sex Podcast, where my friends and I have raw, unfiltered, and hilarious conversations about all things sex. I'm Elisa Eddy, the founder and CEO of Joosi Sexual Wellness, where we try the toys and help you find the right one for you. Now, on to the podcast. Hello, audience. It's time to talk about something really, really important, which is your hoe phase. And it doesn't necessarily even need to end at all, but it is something that is a really important part of your life, and we're going to talk about it. Pretty much every woman I've ever been close to has a hoe phase, but it's very careful when they talk about it.
Yeah.
Do you concur?
I think in certain crowds, people are careful when they talk about it.
In certain yeah, fair.
Yeah. In ours, it's a little different, but most people, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One question is, what do we mean by a hoe phase? I can tell you what I mean. So this is a phase, and often there are multiple of them in your life where you are less picky about partners. You have more partners more often. You try new things sexually. And I personally look back on these phases very proudly and fondly, and always have, even before I technically considered myself a slut. I felt very happy and free about the times in my life when my sexuality was mine.
Yeah.
And it didn't really have anything to do with anybody else. And so that's what I would define a hoe phase. How would you define a hoe phase?
Throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks, just
sounds like how a chimpanzee might define a hoe phase.
I don't know. I think I've had intermittent hoe phases. Just depends on how I'm feeling at the time. But I remember distinctly one of my first very elongated hoe phases was when I broke up with this guy in my 20s, and I felt like I wasn't trapped anymore. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm gonna fuck everybody, Oh, not really.
I think that's an interesting thing that was surprising to me about my later hoe phase as an adult. So, I mean, I was an adult for most of my sex life. Don't worry, everybody. But one thing that surprised me as a person who came of age in the 90s, when I met a long-term partner who I ended up marrying and being with forever, whatever. We're not together anymore, thank God. But anyhow, it started when I was 19 years old, I think. And before that, when I would hook up with people, condoms were an obvious no-brainer. No one was like, oh, why would we use a condom? It was just of course, let's get a condom,
Yeah.
Because I think in the 90s we had the big HIV scare.
Yeah.
And those of us who got to go to those assemblies and all of that were like, yep, I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
And then when I was 35, I became single again in the, I don't know, mid, like 2016. And I was really shocked how many men would pretend that they were surprised when you asked for a condom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, no, wrap that shit up.
Wrap that shit up.
I don't want your AIDS.
I don't want any of whatever. I don't want your head cheese.
Any.
I don't want.
Yeah.
We don't know you like that.
Put a barrier on it.
Put a fucking barrier on it. But it blew my mind. So the first time, it wasn't the first time I slept with somebody outside my marriage, but it was like early in that phase where I was on a date with a guy and we went back to his place and we were having a really good time. And I did let him put me in restraints. They were Velcro. So, and it was like I could reach them myself. It was like, so it's like, all right, I'm fine. It's good. And then we were fucking around and I was like, okay, I think it's time to have sex. So I was like, okay, do you have a condom? And he was like, condom? And I was like, yes. And he was like, whoa, what kind of a slut are you? Why do you need a condom? And I was like, I started laughing so hard, like cry laughing. I was like, are you fucking serious right now? And he's like, yeah, like what kind of a slut would need a condom? I'm like, oh my God. I was like, this is fucking
good
hilarious.
one.
And I'm like, pull the fucking Velcro off. Like, yeah, no. There will not be any sex happening without condoms. Nice try.
You just ripped it off.
Fucking person. What the fuck was that? Yeah. So that was one of the big surprises of my later hoe phase, I would say, was this like resurgence in men trying to get out of using condoms.
Yeah. What is that?
What is that?
They're like, oh, I just don't feel it as much. Is your dick numb?
I don't care. Then don't try for it. Then
Yeah.
if you know what? If it's not that great for you, then just like don't try to fuck people.
Yeah, there's plenty of dolls for you.
There are
you know?
plenty of dolls. Yeah. That was like, I don't know, in terms of condoms in my later singledom, that was just like, what the fuck is going on here?
No way.
Shocker. Yeah. So I think the idea in the hoe phase for me, actually, this is something that my partner and I talked about that was a big aha moment for him and kind of changed him, was there was a guy who I had been on a few dates with who turned out to be a flat earther.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's a revelation. And I was just sitting there at this really fancy taco place being like, what do I do? Did he just say that? And so I asked a few like questions to figure out if it was true. And it seemed like that's where things were going. And he was like, and then you kicked him to the curb, right? My partner. And I was like, no, I definitely fucked him that night.
Oh.
And he was like, what? You would fuck somebody like that? And I'm like, yeah, how many
flat earthers have you fucked?
Unintelligent or low quality humans have you fucked because they were attractive? No,
seriously.
Right? And as a man, no one is like, oh, you should have had your principles. Right?
Where did your value system go?
What happened to you? How could you do that? How could you open your legs for that flat earther? I mean, he definitely ruled himself out of any future dates.
That's so funny, though, that you fucked a flat earther. I would have been interested in seeing what he would say in bed.
I know, right?
Oh, look, the horizon. Does it look curved now?
Oh.
For your pleasure or mine?
I guess, yeah, for a flat earther, he did like curves. I can say that much. But yeah, I think I know that was a big moment for my partner because he was like, wait, what? He's like, wait, women do that too?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, we fuck people that we think are stupid or annoying just because they're hot. And at the moment, it makes sense. And they might not even be hot. It might just be like we want to have sex, just like men are. But
they're just morbidly curious.
Yeah, but sometimes, like, women, we get held to this higher standard. Like, there's supposed to be some meaning about us as the fucky if the, like, moral, intellectual qualities of the fucker are not high enough that we're supposed to reject them. And I call bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, I have a story similar to that. Not a flat earther, but of, like, just really not that bright guys.
Mm-hmm.
After this fraternity party in college, I was, like, flirting with these baseball. They played baseball at Berkeley. Maybe I shouldn't have said my college name. But I was just like, they're hot, and I was just wanted to bang them both, and I had never had a threesome before. So I was kind of a noob at it, and they were both trying to get at me, and I finally was like, well, if you want me and you want me, let's just have a threesome.
Smart negotiation.
And they said nothing interesting, like,
bummer.
but they were really hot, right? And I was like, let's have sex.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I didn't know what I was doing necessarily, but I mean, I know how to move my limbs around, I guess, more gracefully. I used to be a ballet dancer. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit more coordinated. And I thought maybe they would be coordinated because they play with balls. They should be coordinated with their balls.
One might think and be potentially wrong.
It was such an awkward experience. They were so awkward to each other.
Oh, no.
And like they were just trying to not touch, and then like they were doing kind of boring maneuvers where he was just in the back and I was like sucking the other guy's dick. Uh-huh. But it was just like they weren't moving in a rhythm that was like conducive to any pleasure.
Oh, like they weren't syncing up at all. So you're like on 3/4 time with one of them and on like 2/4 with the other.
We're in the 9th inning here and you're not winning, motherfucker. And I in the middle of the threesome, like a referee or something, I was like, all right, we're done. You're out. We're not. Get out. You're out. Get out. We're done. I was like, I tried. They were really hot. You know, you never know what you're going to get. Yeah. Sometimes the sex might be really good. Sometimes it might not be good. But that wasn't really my goal, was to have a conversation with them, you know, like, or to really hang out afterwards. It was purely just for pleasure.
Yeah.
So women absolutely do that too. And men should know.
I'm really proud of your negotiation skills. Like, there doesn't have to be one winner here. Like, we can create value for all parties.
I didn't even realize that was what I was doing in the moment. I was like,
that's awesome. That is awesome.
We're a team.
Yeah. I feel like I had an experience during I guess it was during my divorce, but whatever, like during divorce hoe phase, with a guy who, the first time that he came over, we met on Bumble, I think. And the first time that he came over, we had pretty good sex. It was really fun. We had a good time. And then, I don't know, maybe a few weeks, month or so later, he wanted to come over again. So I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty good. And he was drunk. Like, he was drunk. And I was sober. Yeah. And, well, yeah, but he had no rhythm.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just like...
Yeah.
And,
what is that? People should take a class.
Yeah. We don't want you on random mode, I think. So I was trying to, like, work with it. And I had this thing. Oh, God. I had this thing during my marriage when things weren't going well and I stopped wanting to have sex with that person. And I felt like I owed them. And so I would have a countdown. I would count down from 99, set a time, like, okay, I will now do 99
during
strokes. In my head.
Oh, my God.
In my head of whatever. And at that point, if I don't still want to be doing this, we're fucking done. And so I had started my little countdown. And then as I'm like 93, 94, I was like, wait, hold the fucking front door. I don't know this dude. I don't know him shit. I don't owe him a single stroke inside of my vagina that is not feeling good to me. And I was like, wait. He's like, what? I was like, I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you serious? I was like, absolutely. I'm not having good sex. Are you having good sex?
Damn. Good for you.
And he was like, well, I don't know. I mean, are you giving me a chance to like, get with it? And I was like, actually, no. I'm like really turned off now and I don't want to have sex with you anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to call it. And he was like blown away. He's like, really? I'm like, yes, really. Okay. All right. Okay. And I was like,
his place or yours?
My place. So I was like, you are clearly too drunk to be transportating yourself, so you can go lay down and relax. You don't have to get out of the house, but there will not be any more sex.
Good for you.
Yeah. But it was like such a corrective experience. It was so liberating.
Yeah.
To be like, I don't
to
owe
just be
him.
like, no.
To be like, no, I don't owe you shit. I don't owe you any extra strokes. I don't owe you any extra tries. I don't owe you any extra time. If I'm not enjoying this, I don't have to sit here and count down from 99 to get to the point where I can allow myself to quit. I can actually just be like, and sane.
I mean, if you think about it, guys for eons have been like calling you a cab the next morning, right? I've never personally had that happen, but it happens to women. Like, oh, yeah, we're done. Get out of my house now. We're done. Get out.
Yeah.
Like, so fuck that. If we need to truncate the sex in the middle to be like, it's not great, thanks. I'll call you an Uber.
Yeah.
We do that. We can do that too. You can do that, ladies.
You can do that. I empower you to do that. I think it saves
you can be a hoe with standards.
Yeah. You can be like, it's not so much about having to be picky about who or when, but being picky about whether or not you enjoy it, I think is a good thing to be picky about.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? It was like I talked to my therapist about it like 2 days later. I went in and I was like, I had a great experience with this random dude. She's like, okay. And I told her, she's like, that is about the best corrective experience that I could possibly create for
therapist
a woman to
approved.
have. Yeah, she was like, stamp of approval. Excellent. So I really encourage you to remember next time that you're having sex with somebody and you're not enjoying it, that you don't have to try a different position, do something different, move this or that. You can also just be like, I'm done. I'm over it. And you have your right to do that literally mid-stroke. Never forget it.
We need stickers now.
We do.
Mid-stroke.
Mid-stroke. I quit mid-stroke. Yeah. That was a really good experience for me to have. So let me tell you a story. I was really excited to buy a new clit-sucking toy, so I went to the world's largest online sex toy retailer, and I found hundreds of options with no indication which ones are quality and which ones are right for me. So I had to make my best guess. I ordered the toy, got it in the mail, super excited to try it, and bummer. It's way too strong, even on the lowest setting. Turns out I can't even use it, and I wasted $80. So I throw it in my nightstand, and a couple months later, I look to discover that it has actually melted into another sex toy in my nightstand. I was so mad. I decided to start my own sex toy company, Joosi. At Joosi, we sell a highly curated selection of body-safe sex toys, and we test them so that we can give you all the deets about whether or not it's right for you, such as how strong or gentle it is, how loud is it, and how easy is it to operate. So support this podcast and buy your next sex toy at getjoosi.com. That's GETJOOSI.com. 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 I feel like hoe phases are super valuable as just a person who engages the world sexually. During these phases, you have the chance to rapidly learn new behaviors that you want to form. Right?
So true.
Right? So if you're like, okay, I really need to get better at asking partners what their STD status is before we have sex. Well, no better way to get better at that than having sex with 3 different people in a week and getting some getting some repetitions on. Yeah. And learning kind of like, okay, what is my what's my way of starting a sexual interaction with somebody? What are the things that I think need to be said and that need to be discussed? And instead of it happening so infrequently that each time that there's a new partner in your life, you're like, oh, ugh,
Like back to the drawing board.
yeah, that you're like, what are the things that we're supposed to say or ask
Yeah.
or whatever? Getting practice with that so you can develop actual habits around it, I think is really valuable.
I mean, I learned a lot in my hoe phases. I mean, unless you have to have different kinds of sex, play with different kinds of toys, different guys with different personalities or women, whatever you want, like figure out like what your vibe is, like what you want to have during that moment. And I mean, I've learned a lot from trying threesomes, just doing like missionary stuff, doing crazy shit in public.
Yeah.
Seeing like, what do I like? Where do I fit?
Yeah.
Where do they fit?
Wait, literally. Where do they fit? Is this one a candidate for anal or oral or yeah. I think so learning so this is an area where actually the poly and swinger community have developed really good sort of standard operating procedures, right? Where when they're engaging with a new person, it's like, first of all, what are your boundaries? Which sexual acts are you interested in doing today? Might be, I'm only interested in oral. Okay, receiving or giving. Maybe just giving. Okay, cool, we got it. So you got to find out what people want to do. Then STD status. When was the last time that you were tested? What are you positive for? What are you not? If you have some of the long-term things, are you being treated or not? When was your last outbreak? So on and so forth. And then I really like this co-creation possibility, which is that in the ideal situation of what do you want to do, right? Okay, well, I said oral giving. I really want to go find a bar somewhere and sneak off and find a place in public to go down on you. And that sounds really hot to me.
Yeah.
Right? Which is being creative and thinking, what do I really want here? Instead of just like, whatever happens. Right? And so I think that in this kind of, in the poly and swinger community, they do a really good job of exploring all that stuff and learning how to get comfortable doing it. And I think that that's a great community to take a page from when you're going into a hoe phase.
Yeah. I mean, definitely asking the right questions so that you don't end up in a bad situation. As long as no one lies.
Yeah, no lying.
And, I mean, you got to have consent rules be, given and received properly. Like, if you change your mind in the middle of something, that should be respected too.
Yep. Absolutely. I was talking with someone who I have been sexual with in the past who was asking about my rules or like my rules with my partner as a couple. And they were asking, why we have boundaries where we do. And I said, I don't want anyone to feel entitled to my body ever. So just because you and I have slept together does not mean that you have the right to come and put your arm around me at a party.
Yeah, like the other time, right? The next time. Yeah, absolutely.
To come and kiss me without asking.
Yeah.
Just touch me without asking.
Oh, we've already hooked up, so it's okay now.
Yes.
The gate is open forever. No, it's not like that.
No, and it should be a case-by-case, event-by-event negotiation between two people. And if you can employ that, it can allow you to feel much safer experimenting with different people in different places because you're making really clear expectations that it doesn't mean just because we were at a party and you and I made out doesn't mean that you get to just kiss me without asking me at the next party, right? And I think especially for women, one of the types of calculus we do when we consider whether or not we're going to take on another partner is, will they feel entitled to my body?
Yeah, and that's where kind of the fear comes in too. And I was going to say on your previous point, when within the swinger and like poly community, people are a little bit more comfortable talking about those things, like asking the right questions about the STDs and things like that. But for a lot of people, they have a lot of shame around it, and they're like embarrassed or afraid to say it. And honestly, the more you stand your ground and say it, the more respect you're going to earn from the other person and for yourself. And over time, it'll become easier to just be like, nope, I want to know these things. This is the experience I want to have. And you're going to find better sexual partners that way too.
Yeah, that is very true.
Because the people usually that respect those things are better at sex.
That's true. Because they probably
Because they've done it before. Yeah, they have more experience.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where, I know that in some places in the world, there's this controversy about consent in terms of if a man asks a woman before he kisses her, does that ruin all the romance or the attraction? And I'm going to shoot off some of my opinions about that.
Let's go.
Here's what I will say. It shouldn't. And I do mean to should all over people on this one. If I'm going to should my pants right now.
You're shitting me.
I'm shitting you. So I'm going to use the stereotypical gender roles for the sake of what is probably the most typical experience, but it could be anything. But say that you are a woman and you are getting intimate potentially with another male partner. You guys are getting close. It might be like that time that you're about to potentially kiss. And they're like, can I kiss you?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some people who will be like, oh, I just hate that. It just ruins the moment. And there are others who will say that's essential. You cannot kiss me unless I have told you that it is okay, right? And everything in between. And I would say for those of you who feel like it ruins the moment, are you adult enough to say yes to the things that you want? Is the real issue that you're not comfortable saying, yes, I want to be kissed? And so you say that it ruins the moment? Is it not more important that someone get your permission than that you not feel the discomfort of acknowledging your own sexual desire?
Yeah, it's almost like consent with yourself too.
Yeah.
You know? What do I consent with myself? What do I want to do?
Yep. Admitting to yourself, yes, I do want to be kissed. And I think the way that a lot of femmes are brought up in our culture, it can be hard to admit that, to say, yeah, I do want to be kissed right now. It feels dangerous to do. And yet I also think it's a little cowardly to say that it ruins the moment when all that really ruined the moment was your inability to express your desire or lack thereof, right?
That's a really good point. Like, it's not hard to say, yes, I want to be kissed, and then just have the experience.
Yeah.
Like, don't put it on someone else to make the decision for you, whether it's like to be kissed because you do want to be kissed, or then be kissed and you didn't want it, and now it's weird and awkward and you're in an uncomfortable situation.
And you can ask. And that's the beauty of it, is like, it can be scary. I mean, I feel like when I watch the old movies where nobody asked and they would just like slowly lean closer and closer and be like, and then their mouths are opening and you're like, oh God, is it going to happen? Oh my God, I don't know. And I get like so weirded out.
It's like usually such an awkward, like once they connect the faces, like it's always like a weird, awkward, like some like they hit their teeth or
oh God. Yeah. And so I just think, imagine if you're like, oh no, it feels like the kiss moment's about to happen. And you can be like, hey, can I kiss you?
Yeah, it just breaks down the barrier. And then, why have that awkward moment?
Yeah. And then that person can be like, fuck yes. And then you can
and
go
then you
like
just
all the way
out.
in it instead of like, was that okay? Like,
like, so weird.
Yeah, it's weird. So to me, it makes things a fuckload weirder to not ask and to not be given the opportunity to give permission than to be like, are we going to do this? Yeah, we're going to do this. And then you can go all the way into it.
It's a good perspective I think people need to hear.
Yeah. And I know it can be hard, especially for people raised as women who have been taught that their desires are not okay and that it's really all about what other people want. So it's all about, them getting what they want, and you're kind of the the goalkeeper for others. Instead, maybe go out and be your own advocate and be like, I'm looking at this dude, we're getting closer, and I really want to kiss him.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask, right? And so kind of taking that power, I think, is good. And the more frequent, it's sort of like scuba diving. So if you want to get good at scuba diving, you have to go like twice a day, every day for a week or something. You have to get this frequency of experience doing it so that you develop habits. Because if you're starting from scratch every single time and you don't have habits, you have to think about so much more with your brain, right? But if you have the habit, so my habit is asking. My habit is maybe if they're getting close and they haven't asked me, I'm like, whoa, would you like to kiss, right? I can take control of that. And I can ask, do you have partners? Are you monogamous? Are you not? Do you have consent to do what we're talking about doing from any potential partners? Do you have STDs? When were you last tested? All those things. Getting in the habit of it. So it's the same thing as scuba diving, like checking your weight belt, checking your regulator, checking your mask. And then you're not skipping really important shit when you're hooking up.
I was just thinking under the sea for like cunt or cock.
Under the sea. Yeah. So I think that it's good for that in terms of habits. I think also negotiating the experience you want in terms of like what sounds hot to you right now is sort of some next level shit in terms of hooking up with people who you aren't as familiar with. And I think that's the opportunity to take what could be bad sex. So here's the thing. I have a theory that one reason that a lot of women, especially those who are more in the monogamous community, don't have as many partners as maybe they could is because they don't want bad sex.
Yeah.
And most of the time,
it's true.
Your first sex with someone
if you
is not
find
usually
someone
great.
really good, you kind of like you get scared to lose that.
Yeah.
It's hard to find good sex.
It is hard to find good sex, especially
That's why you gotta
the
be
first
a hoe.
time.
You
Yeah,
gotta try out
exactly. You got to have a lot of auditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think because so often our first time with a new partner isn't great. Like you can tell their skill level, you can identify certain things about them, but it's often not that you're going to have mind-blowing orgasms the first time that you fuck somebody. And given that, that's where we can say, well, why? Why is that? Well, because you have to learn each other. Well, do you have to learn each other, or could you communicate to each other about yourselves? And an example, I've read an article actually that sexual choking is becoming a big thing right now, and that it's dangerous because a lot of the young people,
they're just writing about it more.
Right. A lot of young people are doing it, but they haven't learned how to do it safely.
Yeah.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah, and they see it in a lot of porn, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to choke you. Well, I personally know a lot of women who do like to be choked sexually, and a lot of them who will fucking karate chop your balls off if you try to choke them sexually. And I think an example is, hey, we're about to have our first sexual encounter. I actually really like to be called, I don't know, a slut, but I do not want you to choke me.
Right.
So I don't care how many pornos you watched where that was what they did. Please do not do that. That will not go well for us. And then the person knows, oh, okay, cool. But now I'm going to call you a dirty little slut. And it's like, oh, yeah, fuck yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about public sex first.
Ooh, yeah, let's talk about it.
Because I've had sex in some weird places.
Ooh, okay, I want to know. Okay.
And I consider this kind of like part of the hoe phase for me is just like whenever I decide that I'm feeling extra hoe-y at that point. And then I want to hear some places from you. Okay, but here's some of the weirdest places that just come up on top of my mind.
Okay.
We had this place in college called, it was like frat row basically, and there was Channing Circle, which is like a famous street in Berkeley.
Okay.
And I was like, we should have sex in Channing Circle, like right in front of this professor's house.
Ooh.
And I knew where this like chemistry professor lived, and I did not like him. So we ended up and we were like fucking outside of the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck you, like, fuck me and fuck you. And it ended up not being his house.
Oh, no. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. What? Oh, no.
It was this really old lady.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, sorry. And I am like literally like buck naked, like just out on the street.
Oh my God.
Like it was kind of later at night, so there wasn't a lot of people around. So we were like,
Mhm.
whatever. But I was just like, it was just like literally in public.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I must have given her like a heart attack. So that was one weird place. Another place, I think maybe I've said this before, was in a porta potty at a festival.
Yeah, which is bold.
Let's be clear, it wasn't like a disgusting porta potty.
It was a fancy one.
It was
okay.
It was a palatial. No, it was one of those bigger ones. I don't know if this
Came
really
with a butler.
helps my case. I don't think this helps my case, but it was a bigger one that was like multiple urinals. It was just, it was bigger. And I was horny at this festival, and like all the other lines were really long, and like obviously the men's line was shorter, and I just kind of like ran in there with my ex, and I was just like, I'm really fucking horny, and we fucked in a porta potty, and people were like banging on the door to get in. I was like, oh my fucking God. I literally in the moment was like, I cannot believe I'm fucking in a porta potty right now. I hope no one ever finds out. And then one other weird place was a gondola.
Oh, that's hot.
I think I don't know, I think it was in Heavenly in South Lake Tahoe.
Mm-hmm.
And people were calling it the gondola because they were like smoking each other out in the gondola.
Nice.
And then everyone got out and we just like went back around and like decided to bone in the gondola.
Nice.
And I got such a bad I got so contact high.
Oh, really?
Like we're literally like, it was so hard to put our clothes back on. We were so high and like my like limbs were numb. I was like, is it still in? Because I don't really smoke weed, like it hit me really hard.
In the gondola, that would get me too. I think I would be toast. Yeah. Oh my God. I think for public sex, I've had a decent amount of public sex, and not gonna name like exact locations. So
not just in front of people like
Yeah.
voyeurs and stuff.
No.
We've done that a few times.
Yeah.
But like public.
So for I think it was one of my anniversaries with my partner, maybe like it would have been before COVID, so maybe like a 4-year anniversary. We decided to go on a public sex pub crawl.
What?
Oh yeah.
I love that.
So we asked our friends, where are places around town that you have had public sex successfully, so that we could hit up those spots. And each place, our challenge was to find a way to have sex in that place. And so we definitely fucked in a photo booth.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
A photo booth, which is actually trickier than you think.
They're so small.
They're so small.
I'm impressed, actually.
Yeah.
You're like, when you get two people in there to take a picture, it's tough. Like, everyone's got an elbow in your face, and someone's kneeing your back.
Yeah, and we actually got a picture while we were fucking
Nice,
in the photo booth.
nice.
Which was nice. But the thing is, like, the little curtain, I don't know if you now pay attention. This is probably why they do this, but the curtain only goes to, like, your waist.
It does. I wasn't even thinking about that.
It does not go all the way down. It does not go all the way down. But I was wearing a really short dress.
But he went all the way down, right?
Yeah, right. I was wearing a really short dress and no underwear. And so I definitely fucked in a photo booth, fucked in a bathroom. I'm saying all on this one night at a bar. And then we tried to have sex like while at the bar. Like really tricky. Didn't happen, but we got close. It was just like, couldn't get it into the right spot without
like the right
being
angle,
without the able to reach behind.
It'd be like too obvious at that point.
It would have been too obvious. Dressing rooms of a number of different places we've had sex in. I remember we were on a vacation in Hawaii, and we were shopping, and we're just innocently shopping, as people do, right? I just happen to be wearing a really short dress without underwear. But we were truly innocently shopping. And then I had some things to try on, and my partner had some things to try on. And the lady at the store was like, oh, do you guys want to go in together? And we just looked at each other. We're like,
is she egging you on?
Yeah. We're like, you picked the wrong people. Yeah, sure, we'll do that. We'll go together. So that's happened a number of times. And in these experiences, we have been very mindful of not leaving fluids in places and not exposing people to that. So just to be clear, clean up after yourself.
What were you using to clean up? Did you know, that?
Just the clothes we tried on. No,
okay. I was like, you totally did that. No, I was like, because the pub crawl one, you were prepared, right?
Yeah, we were prepared.
But for this one, it was like,
well, so
you didn't know.
Yeah, when you do public sex.
But you weren't wearing underwear, so.
Yeah, so, theoretically.
But
it could be some.
What did you, I almost am like, should I, if we were kind of going out for no, we're going to get horny, but sometimes you just don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
What? You just use your clothes or?
Yeah, you just use your clothes or napkins that are handy.
So you just walk around crusty now and you're like, that was good.
It's okay. But, here's the thing. You don't usually, with rare exception, you don't usually fuck to completion during public sex.
Oh.
Yeah. You just fuck. You fuck for a little while, and then you got your fuck on.
So
and
now
then
you're limping around with blue clit and balls.
Yeah, you got blue clit and balls, but it just makes you hotter.
Edging each other until you get to the hotel.
No, because if you're actually gonna, go to completion, you need some more supplies that I don't necessarily always have around. Yeah. But if you're just going to slip it in for a little minute, for a little tiny bit, then you can do it pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, that's good.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So I think public sex is a really fun thing to try if you're trying to spice things up a little bit with your partner. Clearly there's weirdos like us around that do it all kinds of places, and you can do it too. I think it's a good way to be a hoe.
I'm like, we're giving advice to give people do public sex.
I know.
Are we gonna get in trouble?
We might. It's
whatever.
Do it only at a nudist colony, or
that's even weirder.
I know. It is even weirder because that's a safe place for nudity.
Yeah, it is, and you don't want to make it weird, and sometimes you don't want to do it in front of certain people that are there either. But
for sure. So for me personally, it's not about getting caught. I don't want anybody to catch us. I don't want anybody to notice or know. And so we've never wanted to do it in a way where people knew what was happening, because I don't want to violate somebody else's personal experience. It's more like doing something sneaky where there's some excitement about the fear of getting caught, but it's not about actually getting caught, because that's not my jam personally. I think that's ethically questionable. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're talking about what you want to do, let's go have sex in that photo booth. Important things to talk about are positions, right? So I want you to fuck me from behind, doggy style. Maybe that's the way that you come the best, right? Imagine just telling your first-time partner this instead of waiting 6 months for them to figure it out.
Oh, God, no.
Right?
And because then you speed it up to see if they're even good at that, you know?
Yeah, otherwise you're like, okay,
material.
we're engaged and I just figured out that you can't fuck and we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what positions you want. Really important things to ask in terms of we talked about choking. That's something to ask, if you don't ever choke somebody without their permission ahead of time, number one. But also dirty talk. Some people love it. Some people get really triggered by it. So I would not assume.
Or annoyed.
Yeah, or annoyed. I would not assume that somebody wants you to say, talk dirty to them. I would ask, can I talk dirty to you? And if they want it, hopefully they have the confidence to say yes. And if they don't, hopefully they have the confidence to say no. But I think asking for what you want just fast forwards your sexual relationship with that person to really you can figure out if you're compatible, instead of trying to be so subtle about what you like that you spend that 6 months being like, I wish that he would just fuck me doggy style.
I think one thing I want to say, though, about that, sometimes you don't know what you want.
True.
So it's okay to try things out, right? Like, you don't always have to ask for exactly what you want if you don't really know. But it's okay to say no if you don't like it when it starts happening.
Yeah.
Right? So it's okay to kind of like experiment and learn as you go, because I've definitely done that before. I didn't know everything I wanted until I did things I liked or things I didn't like. And now I know those things, so I know to ask for it. But like there is a period sometimes when you're on-ramping in your hoe phase and you haven't reached the climax yet.
I like this analogy. Okay.
That you are kind of figuring things out, right? You're like seeing what feels good, what sounds good, and for you and the person you're partnered with, and it's okay. But like, don't let something keep happening that you are uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
Don't give that person that power. Don't
Yeah.
lose your power. And you know, especially if you don't like it and you want to try something else, try something else.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, if like 2-3 times and during you trying different things, I think game over. You know, like that's not the person for you. But
Yeah.
it is so okay to experiment and stuff. Just hold your ground and make sure that you protect yourself and your body, you know, and your mental health and everything.
Yeah. And that if you're not wanting to do it anymore, that you say, I'm going to call it. Stop. Blow
Yeah.
the whistle. It's done. I think so. There's an interesting thing about when you're in a promiscuous phase, making it clear what this moment is to you, so that the person doesn't necessarily misinterpret where you're coming from, which can be, hey, I want to hook up. I think you're hot. This is sexy. I'm not really looking to date anybody right now, but I'd really enjoy hooking up with you is great. Or, hey, I actually really like you. I've kind of had my eye on you for like a couple months and be really cool. Maybe after this we can go on a date. I don't know. But I'm open to it and I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Right? These are different things. And I think when we can have the courage to be clear about that, first of all, I think it could open up some opportunities where people might assume it's just a hookup when maybe it's someone you actually really like, and it just like the hookup happened, and then you're like, shit, do I treat them like a hookup or do I treat them like a guy I went on a date with because we didn't go on a date, you know, right? And so that's true. But then also, you know, you don't have to worry as much about people putting themselves out there, being really vulnerable emotionally, if that's not really what you're looking for, where you're coming from.
Cut the bullshit from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's so much easier.
Yeah, just being honest. I think
being
is
honest
great.
And don't be a coward. You know,
Yeah.
like just say what you want and what your expectations are, and don't like drag someone along. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if it could feel good, because sometimes you feel like that person will give me attention, or I liked their attention, and maybe I don't really want to date them, but I want them to pursue me. Let's be careful about that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's be real clear. Well, I think one thing that really surprised me, so my earlier hoe phases, I was young, and later in life, when I was 36 and I was getting a divorce and I went through that hoe phase, it was hard on some of my friends who were not in a hoe phase.
Oh.
And I was going through hoe phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, some friends I sort of lost as friends through that process. And I think it sucks.
It
right?
does. It sucks.
It sucks. And I think that's just sort of life, where you're not always in the same stage of life as all of your friends. But particularly when it comes to being promiscuous, it can be really triggering for people who are not in the same phase as you. And I think it would be bullshit to not acknowledge that, and that it's a dynamic.
Yeah. Like, especially, I think it's a values thing too. Like, if you just can't understand that your friend is kind of dating around and fucking around, just trying to have some fun and not let that affect you, then you're more grounded and secure. But I think that when it affects people, to be honest, they have some insecurity about their own relationship.
Yeah.
And it like freaks them out that, oh, is my partner going to just go around and fuck everyone now and do all this crazy shit, and it like rattles their world. Or maybe they just feel like they can't relate to you anymore, which you haven't, your core personality hasn't changed. You're just a hoe. You're just fucking more people. But you as a person hasn't changed. But also you are growing, right? You're like kind of stretching your mind and your
stretching something. Yeah.
I didn't even mean to make that joke, but here we are.
Yeah.
But you know, and some people stay stuck in the fate where they're at, and you know what? It's okay to have seasons of friends.
Yeah.
Some friends are long term and stick around for a lifetime, or for most of your life at least, or for different parts of your life, like your childhood or your adulthood, like, you know. And some friends are there for you in seasons. Yeah. And also, history does not equal friendship.
True.
Things can change.
True.
You can change, you know? And so don't feel guilty about trying to figure out who you are and what you like. And yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'm not dismissing the fact that it hurts, you know, and it's really hard to heal from that.
Yeah, I think my personal experience was that I got this sense that I, as the only single person in a group of people, suddenly was supposed to be unhappy with being single, and I was not.
Oh yeah, that thing, that whole energy, like you have to have a partner to be happy.
Yeah,
it's like, no, I'm free of my gilded cage.
Yeah, exactly.
Ready to cage others.
So true.
Who's mistress to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like
that too when I broke up with this guy. I was like, I am not even exaggerating. I was literally skipping to work. I was like, I'm free. I get to fuck all these guys now. I was like so stoked. I was like, and it just goes to show you that you outgrew this person, or just something happened where you just aren't compatible anymore, and you just want to discover what's out there, you know?
Yeah, and I think, let's see. I try really hard to be empathetic to the people who had a problem with my hoe phase, and when I'm sitting there like, what was going on with them? I'm like trying to think back to when I was in a marriage and a committed relationship, and I was exposed to people who were being promiscuous. And I mean, I kind of got over this kind of shit early because my friends were a bunch of gay guys, so like that was just kind of the deal. But the idea is that it's not safe. You're not safe. This is what they will tell you. You're not being safe. I'm just worried about you. I'm just worried about your safety. Because you have this many sexual partners. I'm just worried about your safety. I'm worried that you're not fulfilled or feeling joy because you don't have a partner. This like feigned worry.
Sounds religious.
Which, not even necessarily religious.
I know, but it's just like kind of associated with that.
It is. I'm sure subconsciously it is. But I also think it's like when I was with my ex and I didn't want to be anymore, but I was like, oh God. And this is hilarious to me now, is that I thought, oh, who can handle being single at 36? I'm way too old for that. And now I'm like, oh girl, come on. That's silly. But I would sometimes think to myself, I don't want to be married. I don't want to do this anymore. But I'd be like, but Elisa, what is it really like to be single? What is it really like? It's dangerous. It's lonely. And it wasn't dangerous in particular, and it definitely wasn't lonely in reality. And I think it scares people to be around someone who is single and fucking around with a lot of people and is not lonely and is not in danger.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, why am I staying in this situation? Right?
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it scares them because they're like looking at their own lives now, and they're like, am I happy in my situation? Am I trapped? And so they almost have to like bring you down to their misery, like misery loving company kind of, you know?
I think for some people, yes. I think that's hard. And I also, with some people, got the sense that they were threatened in the concern about maybe how their partner would perceive me. Like maybe their partner would perceive me as sexually available to them because I would be so open about my...
That should tell them a lot about their relationship.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it should. So, you know, those are things. If you're going through a hoe phase and the rest of your world isn't in the hoe phase, first of all, give me a call. I got you. Second of all, it's normal, and there's a lot of dynamics to consider that are real. And I've been to some extent on both sides of those dynamics. And I think the more that you can just openly talk about it, the better that it is. You don't have to change your friends or get new friends unless those people just can't roll with your new life. But,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, friendship, honestly, every relationship takes work, but friendship should be not organic. It shouldn't be so much forced work. It should not be forced at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, if you guys, you know, if you and your friend get together on Sunday for brunch and your stories about your weekend completely freak them out, maybe this isn't the season for that friendship. Right? Yeah. So I guess that's just one of those weird little dynamics to keep in mind when it comes to that. But I think one big benefit to the hoe phase is recognizing your market value.
Ooh. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So like for me, having been married for so long, been with the same person from like 19 or 20 up
It's
to
like limited to their point of view. You
yeah.
know?
Well, and also you're just like, oh God, I don't want to be single. I don't know what that's going to be like. And then you're like, oh, there's a lot of takers and it's fine. Like you might just be like, oh, actually, I am a really desirable person who should be choosing my partners based on whether or not they bring me joy and are good for me.
Yeah.
As opposed to feeling like there is a dearth of good partners out there in the world, or a lack of people who will be interested in me. And so I think getting out there and kind of slutting it up every now and again can be a good thing to remind yourself, oh, I'm actually kind of a hot piece of ass. Got some good things going for me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I think it's valuable for sure. Yeah, so let's see. I think we've kind of covered. This time we talked about sex.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did really good. We've been doing some podcasts lately where we kind of forgot that sex was part of it. So proud of us for this one.
To our level, I think. But I think
Yeah.
sex is still part of it for maybe some people. But you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a good job there. But yeah, so I think we're going to sign off. I think my parting words are, it's really healthy to have phases in your life where you can be really promiscuous and just go and get and have what you want and not worry about other people and what they want or what they expect from you or what they expect you to not do, all that crap, and get other people's rules and opinions off of your fucking body and just experience that freedom.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be how you live all the time. It is probably going to be something that ebbs and flows in phases for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really good for you. And so, like I said, most women who I know well enough to talk about it have had a lot of hoe phases, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I used to do that back in the day, when I broke up with that one guy for 6 months, and and they have good stories to tell. So I would encourage you to not hide it. If you have this history and you have these great war stories and you have this fun time in your past, share it, be proud of it, think about all the great things that you learned from it, and just embrace it. And I think a big note also is it doesn't have to be a phase. It can be a whole life.
It can be your whole life.
Your whole life.
Fuck shame.
Fuck shame. You can live a whole life as a slut or whatever you want to call it. I'm reclaiming that term, so I don't mean it in a derogatory fashion. But you can decide, hey, actually having a lot of partners gets my juices flowing, revs my engine. I like this. You can decide, I need more variety in my sex life all of the time. It doesn't have to just be a phase. It might be. But there's also the possibility it could be your new life. could be in your lifestyle, and it doesn't have to preclude partnership.
Mm-hmm.
You can be not single and living the whole life. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
On that note. All right. Thank you, everybody. We love you. Mwah.